So we're going to be doing ledger entries today. So we have various ledgers. We have the sales ledger, we have the purchases ledger, we have cash ledger, cash book ledger, and then we have the petty cash and returns inwards and returns outward ledger. Everything else that doesn't get into these ledgers that I've mentioned goes into the general ledger, much like the system with the journals. So let's have the sales ledger here. Now the ledger system is that of double entry, where for every debit entry there's a corresponding credit entry. And our ledger has two sides that are identical. We have the debit side and the credit side. And in the debit side we'll have the date, details, volume, and amount, separated by a double lining. Then we have the same information this side. We'll have the date, details, folio, amount. Notice that instead of having the debit and credit next to each other like this, the debit is on this side, the credit is on that side, and we'll follow the same rules of accounting, of debiting the receiver and crediting the giver. So this is the sales journal. So each time we sell goods on credit to someone, we'll put it in the sales journal. Each time we purchase good for resale from someone, we put it in the sales journal, in the purchases journal. Whenever goods are returned to us, we put it in the sales returns ledger. Whenever we return things that we have bought, we put it in the purchases returns. So remember, when we sell and goods are returned to us, sales returns or return inwards. When we buy something, purchase, and then we return stuff back, then purchases returns or returns outwards. And this is the basic outlook of the books. And similarly, we're going to put the date depending on whether this account is receiving or giving. That's how we know if we're going to be debiting or crediting. So sold goods to Densey Private Limited, who is receiving, who is giving? Because we sold, we are giving, and because it's on credit, we are not receiving money, so we're going to be the creditors in this case. We're going to put the date, and then we're going to put Densey Private Limited, the folio identifying number, and the amount. And then if we sell goods for cash, say we sell goods to Ronica Private Limited, this is going to go into the cash ledger. Now the sales ledger, the purchases ledger, the return inwards and return outwards ledger all look the same. So it's going to have this exact thing. And whenever you are approached with a statement or a transaction, you're just going to have to ask the basic question: who is giving, who is receiving? And then by determining that, you'll be in a position to make your entries. Now, because we have the Densey, we did business with Densey here, and we're going to have to open a cash book ledger. Cash ledger is going to be different, that's why I took it. We're going to open a new ledger, and it's going to be called the cash ledger. Notice that it's going to have a debit and a credit side, but you have your date, details, folio, but you have cash. Instead of having a general amount, you're going to have the cash and the bank, because cash simply means that you're getting paid immediately. It's not a date. So because you're not having a debt, it's going to go into the cash ledger, but it can come through the bank or you can be given hard cash. That's why you have both the cash and the bank. Similarly, you're going to have the debit side, credit side, and you're going to reproduce everything here on this side. So you have your debt, details, folio, cash, bank. So we sold goods for cash to Ronica Private Limited. So in the details, cash book is receiving here. So Ronica will be in the details, whatever date we did it, the number, the receipt number, and the amount. So whether it came as an RTGS or we got handed cash. If it's cash, you're going to put it in the cash. If it goes through the bank, you're going to put it in the bank part of the transaction. And this is basically it. Now, the petty cash is going to have various subdivisions. So, petty cash book. The petty cash system is such that there's a floating amount each time, and then day-to-day expenses are used, and then the amount is put back to that floating amount. If it is $50 or $100, whatever we use, whether we use $50, $20, $30, we're going to have the same amount at the end of the day. So the petty cashier keeps this book and basically records what money we're using and for what reason. And so this is a special book that looks like no other book. And instead of having a debit and credit side with just cash and bank with details, we have columns with each and every transaction. Now, the general ledger is much like the general journal because it takes in everything else that doesn't go into either into the sales ledger, purchases ledger, returns inwards or outwards, cash book or petty cash. So this is basically what is contained in the details part of every entry that we're going to put in the ledgers. So the general ledger is an interesting ledger because on each account or each page we're going to have an account with a name. So in the general ledger we're going to have a specific page or area that is dedicated to Densi Private Limited because we do business with Densi Private Limited, and this whole page will have the same form as we have here with date, details, folio, amount, debt, details, folio, amount. And for each transaction that is credited, it will have a corresponding debit entry because Densi is receiving, so Densi is purchasing from us. So in this details part in Densi's account, we're going to put sales, whatever amount it is, the receipt number, and the date. So you're going to notice that in just this entry, you know the two parties involved, the date it was done, and the amount, and the associated receipt number. And you can go straight into the sales ledger, check the dates, and then find Densi Private Limited in here. And that's how we check for errors. And the double entry system is such that for every debit there's a corresponding credit entry. So when we do the books of final entry, this has to all tally, this all has to reach the same number, and if there's a variation